You are listening to In the Lab with Genifer on Mondays on iCannabisRadio.com.
All right. And my head's getting cut off. What's going on with this high-tech camera? Whee! Okay. So, thank you, Chris, for that very great introduction, since we cannot have music anymore, especially music that we're not paying for. That's why we do not have She Blinded Me with Science, because, yeah, they don't like us to use their music and not pay for it, which I totally get. So, so Chris made a little intro for my show, and I appreciate that, Chris. Thanks so much. So, yay, Tamar's back, and she's got a lot of goodies to tell us. Woo. A lot of great things happening in the world of cannabis.
Yes, definitely.
Yes?
And it sounds like you've gone to some events, too, that I haven't heard about.
Yeah, so
the CNI event.
CNI, Colorado Neurological Institute. I went to their 25th anniversary with Jan, who owns the farm in Boulder. And we just thought, well, it was thanks to her. She told me about it. But we thought we'd go and kind of explore what was going on and if we could spread the good word of cannabis. It really wasn't a big opportunity, because they had a silent auction, and then they basically had a program, so somebody was talking.
Right.
So we really didn't get to talk to a lot of people. But that's definitely where people should be putting some of their sponsoring dollars that are more interested in the medical side of cannabis, as we need to start, getting to know the neurological, especially neurology, because obviously it's directly related with our kids that, have seizure dysfunction. So, but I would love to next year, and, this coming year, for cancer and MS and all of these things, if we're able to donate money to them, because I think that's when maybe they'll take us serious and really want to understand.
Absolutely, providing funding, definitely. And, when I was in New York, there were a lot of wonderful doctors speaking, but the majority of them were not from the United States.
Oh, really?
So I just feel like the United States is kind of falling behind as far as, specific
No
studies.
way.
I know I said it.
Say it isn't so.
But you're right about funding, because that's obviously very vital to any kind of scientific study, is not just the funding, but the interest, and then I guess what a lot of people don't think about is the freedom from fear of backlash.
Right.
Because in the last few weeks I've been talking to a lot of scientists, and they're just curious, like, why haven't you done this? Oh, I didn't think about, the fact that there's so much legal backlash. I mean, you look at the science of, for example, hops. We went to the Waters seminar.
Waters Corporation is like the Bentley of scientific instrumentation.
Right, and specifically they have options for analytical and small research type models, so that you can do the R&D and test analytically as you go. And they're scientists who have developed their own extraction equipment because they know what they need, because they're scientists as well.
Right.
And there's a hops expert who, has unlimited access to, well, I shouldn't say unlimited, but he doesn't have to think about the repercussions of trying to get a substance that is federally illegal. And not just that, but also it seems like there's extra difficulty if you're trying to actually study the positive effects of cannabis versus, oh, well, I can get funding if I want to study the negative effects.
Yep. Back to that propaganda. I know, and that's an important point. So Waters had a free, yes, I said it, free CO2 extractor seminar last week. And actually Heather Daypre, the director of my lab, spoke on a section of it. I was unable to be there because I was in Boston, but you thought it went great. And
I mean, it was wonderful. I also went to the New York event, which was wonderful in and of itself. But having a free seminar of that caliber was very refreshing. It was nice, and all those scientists, are very professional. They're very giving with their knowledge and their expertise. Heather,
totally different.
Heather, as I told you, multiple times, she did wonderful. Because again, it's why don't you just throw it in an MS?
Right. Well, just throw it in there.
Which it's what if you had access scientifically to the lab of your dreams, right?
Of course,
right?
Yeah, I'd be swimming in MSs,
right? But people don't think about that. The road that cannabis scientists have to take because, they have that initial aspect or that reactant, that element of the negative propaganda. And, years ago, if you said you're in cannabis science, people would
laugh at you.
They'd laugh. They'd be
they
like,
would.
"Oh, what are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
But there's I like to say there's going to be PhDs in endocannabinology. Super long word. Maybe they'll call it something else. But there's such a vast array of information and knowledge that still has yet to be learned.
Oh yeah.
So it's just really exciting that I'm hoping that in the United States, we can do more studies. New York and Arizona,
sure.
They're out there, they're ready. And,
it's just that, they're not allowed to do it. Either the DEA shuts them down, or the school shuts them down, or the government shuts them down. I mean, it doesn't stop. It's interesting because, I was in Boston. I was in Boston because they have, I think, 158 people applying for a dispensary license, and in Massachusetts, there's 35 slots.
Right, I heard it was over 100. Wow.
Yeah, and it might have dropped down because you have to have $500,000 in the bank, and people had promissory notes and stuff like that, and they made it clear that it has to be liquid cash.
Right, it's not something, I can raise this.
Right. They have to have liquid cash. So I think several dropped out. Then they're having, of course, the problem with the moratoriums in the cities that don't want it. So I think more people drop out because of that. Plus, it's a $30,000 application, non-refundable.
Wow.
Let me say that again. $30,000 non-refundable. So, we're cruising along with cannabis, but we're paying a huge price. There is no other industry right now that it would cost you $30,000 to even apply and not get refunded on.
That's a big influx of money for whatever state is looking at legalizing medical cannabis. I mean, that's
gigantic.
$5 million right there.
$5 million.
Non-refundable.
Non-refundable that the state just made. So,
that's crazy.
But anyway, so only, 35 people, or 35 dispensaries. So if you get a dispensary license, you get a grow license, and then you can also manufacture infused products as well.
So, and this is in Massachusetts. Okay. So similarly, they're having that whole, seed to sale, right? So if you're if you're manufacturing a infused product, you have to also grow the plant that goes into it, right?
Yes, as far as I know, it's all one.
Is that a similar thing everywhere on the East Coast?
Arizona.
Okay.
Arizona's doing that. I don't know.
Or did they just pick and choose from, you know what I mean?
I think they kind of pick and choose. What I do know, though, is Maine people are lashing out at the dispensaries. Evidently, the feeling there is that the dispensary owners are charging too much. So instead of doing that, they're just going to... Sorry. Oz, our Tamar's dog, got up from his blankie and it's hanging from him, and he looks like Superman. It's kind of funny. But anyway, they Maine is lashing out, and the caregiver model is huge, I guess.
So is that why they're lashing out? Because they feel like they already have a model?
No, because they feel like the dispensaries are charging too much, so they're just getting a caregiver instead. Well, as we know here, if we had such a huge caregiver, then that wouldn't be fair because they don't go through as much scrutiny as it takes to get a full-blown license. You know, and I didn't vote for legalization so people could grow and sell it out of their house. Like, that's not why we voted for this.
And when I was out in Arizona, the dispensaries that I visited, you know, because the different legalities and different regulations that the different states are deciding to use, it's interesting to look at all of them and see kind of what's happening, you know, because we're all in a petri dish. With Arizona, and I don't know if I have the idea correctly, so maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding is, say you have a caregiver person or group in a certain area. If a dispensary, because there are like...
CHAs, they're called CHAs.
Okay. If a dispensary gets a license and it's within a certain radius, then that caregiver has to move or relocate.
Right. So what happened in Arizona is they divided the state up into what they call CHAs, and that stands for something. But basically, it's an area where they feel a dispensary could be. Okay, so there was originally like 120. Well, then you have the moratoriums. Okay, so I think there's about 80 now or something like that. So if in your CHA nobody got a license or there's not a dispensary, then you can do a caregiver. However, they don't want, again, people caregiving if there's a dispensary because they've already licensed a dispensary, they've already done a background check. You know, a lot more goes into having a dispensary license. So that's kind of what's happening in Arizona. What we need to do is get Steve on the line to talk to him a little bit more about that. But and then so now what's happening again in Massachusetts, it's funny because if you want to get in this industry, there's one piece of advice that you need to take, and that is you absolutely have to get a consultant. I don't care what you want to do in the business, you need a consultant. And you need a consultant from Colorado. You need a consultant from where there is regulation and where people have actually had to follow regulation and stuff like that. So anyway, in Massachusetts, you know, they're all jazzed and stuff, but what I try to tell them is, okay, you can be all jazzed and everything and get your license, but now you're going to have to worry about a landlord. If you know, preferably you own the building or know who owns the building, because landlords don't like this. Then you're going to get towns that have a moratorium. So that's what's happening in Massachusetts. And then you're going to have people that want to charge you 100 times more because it's marijuana. Then you're going to have to do a bank and I mean, it's an uphill battle. And it's funny because when I was listening to this to the state, and the state has done a great job. The state of Massachusetts really has. I think they've gotten feedback. I mean, they've done a great job. But you could hear people in the audience like, what, you know, complaining. And I'm like, okay, people, if you're annoyed about this, you better just pack up and not get in the industry because it just keeps getting harder and harder. I mean, it's hard. It's going to be your hardest business you've ever owned. So just know that up front, you know. Now, as we know, the benefits far outweigh the downside, at least for me, it has. And pushing science forward. But for some people, I mean, this isn't for you.
Right. It's not as easy as, you know, because there's a lot of investor money floating around.
Which they also have to be careful because, as we know, there are a lot of bad players in the industry, too. What we're going to be talking about here when Chris gives me the sign, which you just did, we're going to come back and we're going to talk to Rob Hunt and discuss cannabis.org. From what I'm hearing, it's maybe the WebMD of marijuana. Rob can talk more about that when we come back.
Ideal 420 soil is preloaded to perfection with all your nutrient, microbial, and biostimulant needs. It's compatible with all strains and is good for a 22-week grow cycle from seed to harvest. This product is 100% organic and gives your marijuana that awesome aroma and smooth taste we all desire. Ideal 420 Technologies is well grounded in soil chemistry, soil physics, and microbial biology, making them the most advanced soil company in the marijuana industry. They do the science so growers can focus on what truly matters, the plants themselves. No more mixing and feeding of expensive nutrient lines, supplements, and foliar sprays. Not to mention, the company is prideful in being the most consistent soil product that has yet to hit the market. Due to the results when using Ideal 420 soil, they are quickly changing the standard for cannabis cultivation. To order the product, go to ideal420soil.com. Use promo code INTHELAB for an additional 20% off.
Call Canisher at 1-800-420-5757 for all your insurance needs. Canisher understands the risks you face each day, and we are there to protect your business and your investment. Since 2010, Canisher has been serving the cannabis industry nationwide. Call Canisher at 1-800-420-5757 or visit us on the web at canisher.com to learn more about our insurance and risk management services. Proud member of the NCIA.
I'm Gary Johnson, and you're listening to iCannabis Radio, and I want to say, talk it up, Colorado.
All right, and we're back, and we're going to give a call to Rob Hunt, cannabis.org, if you want to join us at home on that website. Fashionably late.
Hi, this is Rob Hunt from Grow Life Hydroponics.
Rob.
Please leave me a text.
Okay. We're going to try again. Try back. It probably didn't ring or something. Sorry about that. Technically difficult. Technically. I'm technically difficult.
Oh, it's Rob.
There we are. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Jen.
This is myself and Tamar and
Hello.
the rest of iCannabis Radio. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing today?
Doing well.
We are doing fantastic. Kind of talking about the laws of Massachusetts and a little bit about Tamar's trip. But listen, I came across cannabis.org, and I'm hearing a lot of great things about it, including the fact that it might kind of be like a doctor, a WebMD or whatever those for cannabis. Can you tell us about the site and how it started and everything?
Sure. Originally, Cannabis.org was something that we had originally designed to be a portal for all things cannabis, very similar to a lot of other sites that are out there. And the more we started looking at the more we realized we didn't want to be just another Cannabis.com or cannabis play. Mm-hmm. So we tried to create a different model, and what we decided is that after the Justice Department announcement on the 29th that we would really focus on one issue, and that one issue was trying to help get cannabis delisted off of the Controlled Substances Act as a Schedule I drug. And although there's plenty of groups out there that we really respect, including ASA and MPP and NORML, that are working on the same issue, a lot of them have multiple issues that they're focused on, whereas we just decided, let's just pick one and let's go after it. And the way we decided to do that is really ask the federal government to tell the truth on the issue and say, okay, it's at this point 20 states plus D.C. have medical laws on the books, yet you're still claiming no medicinal value whatsoever. There's just too much of a disparity between those statements.
Right.
And we thought that we'd bring attention to it by showing as much science, as much research, and as much testimonial as we could find on the issue for every single ailment by ailment, state by state, and country by country. And so when we launched on October 1st, we launched with a tremendous amount of content that was bringing as much information as possible that people could resource. So if you were, let's say, living in Illinois and you said, okay, I'm in Illinois, I'd like to know, where I can find a good doctor, or where I can find a good attorney for this. I'm looking at opening a dispensary. I just need more information. We wanted to make sure that we had resources for that person. We also wanted to make sure we had resources for a patient that, let's say, has MS or Crohn's disease, and they could say, okay, will this help my ailment? Is there any scientific research and backup that I can find that would substantiate that it can? So we tried to find something that would really help be a resource for patients, doctors, scientists, and the medical community.
Well, I'm looking on it now, and it is very user-friendly. In fact, yeah, you just go up to the library button. You got all the states there. You got some conditions listed already. And I can't help but see, Rob, that you have over almost 17,000 likes. Wow. That's incredible.
We've been really lucky that way. We've really been putting content on the Facebook page and on the site on a daily basis, and we try to respond to a lot of different articles that come out and say this is what our feeling is on it, whether it's just a rebuttal or a response, positive or negative, and say this is how we think this is going to affect the law in whatever state they say. So, for instance, in Massachusetts,
right,
if they post an article about moratoriums for different municipalities, we'll come back and say how we think that's going to affect the opening of dispensaries and access of medicine to patients. But we'll try to figure out a way to break it down to the lowest common denominator to anyone that's actually following the issue that might not know as well as some of the people on our team do. We just give them a resource of saying this is what that means based on what you just read in the Boston Globe.
Wow. That is so great because Can Labs is launching a new website and, again, wanted to help people that have no idea because you have somebody new coming into this realm and, you just don't want to send them to, let's say, a dispensary site. You really want to send them to a resource page where they can feel that they're getting trusted information.
Absolutely.
Right. That's, Jen, you just nailed it on the head. That's the important thing about what we're doing at Cannabis.org is I love certain other sites like Weed Maps or Leafly or some of the other ones that are out there.
Sure.
The difference between what we're doing and what those guys are doing is their content is categorized based on who's paying money to advertise on the site. So the more you pay them, the higher rankings you get and the higher you are in their listings.
Right.
We didn't want to go that direction. We really wanted to go the direction that if you're a patient or you're someone looking for a resource, that's an even playing field. There is no favoritism, and it's really about providing good information to the people that are seeking it, rather than saying, oh, you should access this article from the Wall Street Journal because the Wall Street Journal paid us more than the New York Times.
Right.
And we just didn't want to get in that situation. So we've tried to make it as you said, user friendly, where people can just look up what it is they're trying to find. And again, this site's only 15 days old. Wait for another month or two when we keep adding content to it. We had a relaunch over the weekend of just additional information with a new graphic interface, and we're going to continue to tweak the model until we have something that we think is just exceptionally dynamic.
Well, it looks really easy to follow. There's some great stories on here. In fact, the Israel thing, people are very surprised that there are, the rest of the world. And I'm like, Israel's leading. Don't you think the field in cannabis science?
Absolutely, and I've tried to bring attention to that. I actually posted 2 stories about Israel last week, and I think that their scientists are doing a tremendous job of isolating compounds, of really pushing the envelope on CBD work. It's not to say there aren't other countries in Western Europe or in the Middle East that are starting to come along. Well, I shouldn't say the Middle East. Israel's really the only one. But Western Europe, Romania just announced that they're moving forward with the medical cannabis program last week.
Oh, wow.
France has done the same. Switzerland did the same a few weeks ago, even though Switzerland's had a program in place for quite a while for cannabis. But more and more, everyone thinks Europe and they think Amsterdam, and now they're starting to think Spain and Portugal. But it's not just those countries. It's quite a few countries in Western Europe that are getting involved. But nobody's doing what Israel's doing, and we're still a distant second to them.
Right.
And the big difference is they're able to study it. Their doctors are encouraged to study it.
Right.
And until we take it off Schedule 1, our hands are tied here. No matter what we want to do, the best thing we can do is send our best scientists to Israel or to other places where we're allowed to study, because we don't have the same ability to get our top brains behind what's happening here and isolate genomes and isolate compounds. And our goal at Cannabis.org is just to draw as much attention to that as possible, because it's ludicrous. It's absolutely crazy that everyone in this country at this point, the majority of Americans believe that there's definitely medicinal value, a vast majority, and most believe that recreational should be legal. But at this point, we still can't do anything to further the aims of what's best for patients, because the federal government has strangled the whole issue.
No, you're exactly right, and you hit on a great point, saying that if we don't get our government to admit these medicinal benefits, how are we supposed to study it and get to the nitty gritty like Israel and some of these other countries? I mean, that's the bottom line. Is even if these amazing scientists in illegal states or even legal states, I mean, I've talked to some amazing doctors here that they just can't talk about it because they, their hospital insurance or whatever it is, like, and so they'll lose their license. So it all comes down to, I guess, rescheduling then.
And the worst part is a lot of those doctors want to do something and they believe there's benefit there. And for them, they can't believe they're not allowed to prescribe it or recommend it. I mean, I posted a story the other day about Child Protective Services going in on a mother whose child has been in remission from leukemia, and Protective Services came after the mother for not keeping the kid on chemo when the remission happened long after she took him off chemo and only went to a cannabis regimen. You look at that and you're like, what's this world coming to? It's absolutely ridiculous that a mother that obviously cares for the life of her child more than any other person in the world isn't able to do what they believe is in the best interest of their child's health care. We're not talking about, like, bleeding people with leeches or, like, using, like, poisonous snakes. We're talking about, like, something that actually has been to shrink tumors.
And you bring up a good point, Rob. I was just at a seminar, a doctor seminar in New York, and there was an Italian researcher talking about she was going through the steps of discovering new anti-epileptic drugs, going through the preclinical studies with rat babies to make sure it's safe before prescribing it to some of her infant patients. And even though she went through the steps of making sure it was safe, 2 of those drugs were still extremely harmful and caused those 2 patients to have worse seizures. And so you're talking about a non-toxic, it's from a plant, a natural constituent that is very medicinal, very health, preventative. And we're limited in what we can actually, we can't go through the typical steps of proving all this anecdotal science, and making it legitimate science, because as you were saying, it's like we're handcuffed. These researchers, a lot of them are from out of the States, and I've talked to a lot of doctors who would like to, get into these kind of clinical trials, but how can they? That avenue isn't even open for them.
Right.
And you actually just raised an even more important point, and that's that I'm definitely not a firm believer that cannabis helps every ailment or helps everything, but until we actually really get in there and figure out what it does, we just don't know. And we know enough at this point from having enough people say, hey, this works for whatever the ailment is. There's enough anecdotal evidence that we can say there's beyond a shadow of a doubt we know that there's something there, but we haven't even scratched the surface of what that is yet. It's like what is that we're finding? Just where we are right now, literally we're in like cannabis medicine 1.0, and we'll never get out of that until we actually deschedule. And I don't even think rescheduling to Schedule 2 or Schedule 3 is going to do it. I think Schedule 5 is the minimum, and I think that descheduling is probably even a better way to go.
Descheduling, it's a superfood.
As a homeopathic herb, much the same way a lot of other things are.
Absolutely. Exactly. Yep. If it wasn't for that one cannabinoid out of 100, we would be fine. But again, THC, like I say all the time, is not the redheaded stepchild. It has plenty of medicinal benefits in its own. And Rob, thank you so much for taking time. I know you are so busy, and I could tell you're on the run, but I'd like to have you back on to talk about growing and stuff like that, and also more in depth about Massachusetts and how many great things you've been doing for Massachusetts. So hopefully you'll come back and join us. Maybe if you're in Colorado. If not, we'll do it over the phone again.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to have a chance to talk to you guys about Grow Life Incorporated and what we're doing as far as being the only SEC publicly traded company that's fully reporting. So the next time I'm on, I'd love to get a chance to talk about ticker symbol PHOT. So that's plug for the company.
PHOT. No, that's great, because I do want to talk. There are plenty of people out there investing, and I'd really like to have a serious talk about what to and what not to invest in, because we have the inside track. So, all right, Rob. Well, thank you. And again,
Thank you,
that's at cannabis.org. And is there a place to leave comments and stuff if people had questions or?
Yeah, the Facebook page is the best one for now. We'll take all the comments that go onto the Facebook page and move them over to the cannabis.org, the real site. But if you go on to anywhere on the Facebook and just type in cannabis.org in the search field, we pop right up. The more people that like us, the happier we are. So please get on there and please respond. Everything we post is open for comment and open for discussion. We love how much response we've gotten already, but we could always use more. It's a great conversation we're having out there.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Rob. Take care.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Bye-bye. Well, that was some great information, and we're getting the break symbol. We'll be back. This segment was brought to you by The Farm, a medical marijuana care center located at 2801 Iris Street in Boulder. The Farm carries premium, cannabis, edibles, and Hummingbird brand products. Visit our new cannabis lifestyle store for your local artesian glass, vaporizers, and hemp clothing. The Farm has been serving Boulder since 2009. Isn't it time you come and see what we have to offer?
Cannapunch is a delicious and effective medical marijuana beverage proudly made right here in Colorado. Each bottle is freshly infused with 100% pure flower extract from the highest grade marijuana plants available today. Using proprietary extraction methods, every bottle of Cannapunch is consistently and reliably infused with an exact milligram dosage that you can count on to relieve your symptoms each and every time. Cannapunch is delicious. There's never any medicine-y taste. We use only 100% cannabis flowers. No trim or byproducts are ever used in Cannapunch. It does not require refrigeration and comes in convenient, resealable multi-dose bottles from 60 milligrams to 200 milligrams. We have drinks with dosage that works best for you. Cannapunch is available in a variety of delicious flavors like black cherry, watermelon, pineapple mango, and blue raspberry. And we now have strain-specific beverages available just for you. Cannapunch is delicious, convenient, consistent, and effective. Give it a try and experience the Cannapunch difference.
Green Faith Ministry is for spiritual guidance, MMJ information, and networking combined with compassionate care on the way to enlightenment with all Green Faith sacraments. Green Faith provides charity assistance, including medical and food throughout the year. Contact them at greenfaithministry.com.
And got the thumbs up. How sad. I was just on, of course, Facebook. And now there's a drug called crocodile, which means crocodile in Russian. That's like heroin. And it's 10 times cheaper. And you mix codeine with gasoline or oil. It is just beyond. You know, instead of really just going after each of these drugs, how about we stop and talk about why people are taking drugs? Mm-hmm. Like, why is our country or the world so addicted to things all around? I mean,
no, you're absolutely right. And I mean, there's that shamboiling trend that's, you know, it's scary.
Shamboiling. And I call it shambling. Or you call it shambling. I called it I don't even know. But that's where you heat up your shampoo and inhale the vapors. God.
And what's scary about that is it's really, really young kids who are getting into that and trying that. And
well, I saw something that was even scarier, to be honest. And it is a website on Facebook. Here it is. And it's called Marijuana Makes You Violent. Okay. Of all things that that happens, that is definitely not one of them. I mean, really? So they stole my buddy Steve Cottrell's lab information in Arizona. And they have it all, and then talks about how THC causes pain, destroys all nerve endings. I mean, it's just on and on. THCV kills you, causes 100% of obesity. Like, really, they're claiming that this is the truth. Learn the facts. I want to know where they got kills you and causes 100% of obesity.
And what's interesting is it sounds almost like it's a Reefer Madness joke.
And it's not.
And the funny thing is you're showing me this, and they didn't even change the
No.
font. They didn't change anything about, because
No.
I'm familiar with this.
Yeah. No.
I mean,
Completely stole it. And then says, oh, and gives you AIDS and herpes.
Actually,
I did not know a plant could do that.
it gives you a virus.
Yeah, it gives you, cannabis
plant
gives
does.
you a virus.
You know what's funny
A
is
rah-rah.
actually CBD has been found to block transmission of HSV too. I mean, and these, as Rob was saying, you know, cannabinoids may not cure everything, but we won't know the full picture until we do the full studies.
Right.
Who knows what else cannabinoids can do, you know? There could be a lot more.
Real quick, let's go back to what Rob said. The woman,
From Colorado Springs,
Colorado
right?
Springs, well, let's not say her name, but they're actually from Utah.
Oh, okay.
And they came here, they've moved here since for treatment. And her son, let's see, her son was having such good numbers and everything on leukemia. And of course, they couldn't tell the doctor because the doctor would have stopped treatment. But they were having the most amazing stuff. And then it looks like all of a sudden now they're, let's see, Child Protective Services. God. Colorado mom visited by Child Protective Services for treating son's cancer with medical marijuana instead of chemotherapy. Yeah, because chemotherapy is so good for your body, isn't it? Like, I'm going for a session tonight just because, you know?
You know what's sad is Matt's grandma actually recently passed from metastasized cancer, and when she found out, it was already it was progressed, pretty severely. After her first chemotherapy session, she got exponentially worse. I mean, it was insane to watch the progression of, because chemotherapy is not selective. You know, it's killing all cells.
Every cell.
And
yeah.
then there's, the after effects of that exposure to essentially radioactive material. So what makes me sad about that story is anecdotally, his mom is proving that it was working for him.
Oh, it was working. Yeah. I mean, they were like, wow, his numbers are doing so great. Yeah. Yeah.
So, it goes back to what Rob was saying is, as far as,
scheduling.
descheduling it completely.
Oh, and here's something else exciting. Okay, so there's TED. I've never even knew what TED was, right? And
it's like the enlightened and technological and scientific, like the greatest minds go to speak.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a TED in Boulder to talk about cannabis.
That is awesome.
Medical cannabis and pediatric epilepsy. And Josh Stanley spoke, and the brothers. I'm going to share it on my Facebook page.
Awesome.
I'm sure it'll be on the pediatric cannabis therapy page. But how great. So that's about an 18-minute video, which is pretty neat.
What's really funny is about 2-3 years ago, right before I really got immersed into this industry, I was telling my dad, because he's familiar with the TED Talks too, and I told him that one day there will be TED Talks that include cannabis.
Yep, already happened in Boulder.
I know, that's so exciting. That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
And Boulder too. I love Boulder.
I
That's
know,
where I went to
Boulder's
school.
Boo. Just kidding. So tell me about the East Coast and what it's completely different. People kind of look at you sideways. At least that's what happened to me.
Yeah, I definitely get. It's kind of and it's interesting, like I was saying earlier, to see the kind of evolution of regulation almost, you know, because the East Coast is, you know, Colorado started a while ago. We've had, you know, arguably the most experience, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's interesting because the East Coast, you know, as I was saying earlier as well, they were able to pick and choose what they thought would work for them. I'm happy that they're trying to do more regulation in terms of product safety, you know, dosing, etc. It's interesting because there's so many different types of models versus perhaps finding one. As far as my mentality is, if we are going to have this cannabis be medicine, eventually it will be nationally legal. If we're trying to compete with pharmaceuticals and nutraceuticals, then we need to produce and manufacture our medicine up to those, you know, those standards and that quality.
Right.
The East Coast does seem to be going more towards that route, but I don't know. I just don't understand the logistics of, for example, Connecticut has like 3 licenses. 3.
So far?
No, that are available.
They're only giving out 3 licenses in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Growing licenses?
Just the because you have to, if you manufacture, you have to also grow your own.
Right. So it's a vertical system. So it's mass.
So it's just interesting, you know, as you were saying about mass, you have to have at least a certain amount of money. Same in Connecticut.
Connecticut, I thought you had to like have a couple $1 million.
Yeah, it's definitely, I believe it's 2.
$2 million. I mean, it's crazy because they're making it so hard for us. They really are. They're making it really hard. And then they're making it almost impossible for anyone that normally could start up a business with, you know, a little bit of money and sweat equity. It's impossible to do that in the cannabis industry now.
There's all those added, you know, as I was saying, the added difficulties against cannabis researchers and scientists. There's similar, you know, disadvantages for cannabis business people who want to get into this industry. You know, chief among them was the fact that we still can't really bank. What other business model, period, can you not have a banking system?
I know. It's ludicrous. Well, and something else that's ludicrous, thanks, Colorado. The city and county of Denver is now trying to pass an ordinance, a smell ordinance. And basically it says a proposed Denver city ordinance on recreational marijuana use could put medical patients in a bad situation. The ordinance being introduced at a committee meeting Monday in advance of the legalization of retail pot. That's probably today, right now. In January would specifically ban marijuana from parks and the 16th Street Mall. It also would prohibit smoking on private property. And that's the place I've got a problem with. Because if I'm sitting in my lawn, I can drink a beer, I can smoke a cigarette, and yeah, my neighbors can smell me smoking a cigarette and it doesn't matter.
Right.
And yet you're not going to let me smoke pot on my porch or my backyard, and I can't go to clubs because they're not allowing smoking clubs. So where are we supposed to smoke pot? Lock ourselves in our house, draw the drapes,
go in the closet,
glow in the. I mean,
bathtub.
it's ridiculous. It is so ridiculous. Now, of course, I wouldn't expect it to be that you could just puff up in a park or anything like that. I mean, that's ridiculous. Okay, and I also wouldn't, puff up on the 16th Street Mall. Of course, there are people that would because they like to push the limits. But, and I also, but that was one of the biggest things with the task force meeting. It was, well, what if you have a backyard that's on a park? What do you, and a bunch of, and not only did they say that, but they said, and the brownie troop was walking by. And it's like, okay, where do we draw the line at things? It's like, okay, educate your kids I sure hope you educate kids not to smoke cigarettes. And, really drinking isn't good either. Stealing your pills from your cabinet's not good. But where do we draw the line in parenting and stuff like that? And that was a huge problem during the task force meetings is, parents were like, well, what about the kids? Well, what about being a parent? If you want to have a child, you have at the minimum 18 years of educating your child so they can make the right decisions. And it's not, I didn't have kids, so I certainly shouldn't have to parent your kid. Okay.
And what's interesting is, why are we not applying this kind of spotlight on tobacco or alcohol advertising?
Right. Because they already messed that up.
Right.
See? So they're just, wanting to start. And I understand that. But all of us in the industry that are responsible, and even back when I did smoke cigarettes a gazillion years ago, I mean, I was never rude. I would always went by myself, but the private property really makes me angry because yes, I understand some people hate the smell of pot. I do. I get it. But, at the end of the day, we passed 55% of people passed this, and I don't think people want us. Where can we smoke? And if we rent an apartment and you can't smoke in your apartment, where are you? Where are you going to smoke?
And you can't go outside to smoke.
And you can't go outside. Yeah. It's a real problem, and I'm really let down by, Mayor Hancock. I think this is ridiculous, and I actually think they just got push from people that said, oh, it'll never pass, so they didn't bother about it, and then it did pass, and now they're freaking out. But, if you hate it that much, then maybe you should move out of Colorado. Or maybe you should move to Greenwood Village. Greenwood Village would love to have you if you don't like marijuana.
That's funny.
What's funny is I grew up in Greenwood Village, and it's not marijuana you had to worry about. Let's just say that. Where do you think all the kids got their drugs from? Cherry Creek High School. It's just the way it is. Anyway. So now that I'm off that rant, but yeah, we really need, so it says urge Denver City Council to vote no on BR 13-0736. And, you can call your council person at large. And this can be found on ColoradoCannabisBlog.com.
Is that just for the smell of the smoke, or because, cannabis terpenoids smell really strongly? So does that include if you're walking down the street and can smell
a vape,
a grow, or
Oh, I know. Yeah, they were talking about that too. Okay, we got to take a break, and we'll be right back.
iVita Wellness is committed to compassionate patient care while providing the highest quality medicine at an affordable price. At iVita Wellness, patients can get top shelf ounces for $150 every day. iVita Wellness also carries pharmaceutical grade pure CO2 oil. iVita Wellness is located in Uptown Denver on 1616 Pearl Street, open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can reach us at 303-952-9150 or our website at www.ivitawellness.com. iVita Wellness is Denver's Compassionate Care Center.
The Law Office of Edson Maton and Matz provides criminal defense, family law, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running a medical marijuana center, optional premises cultivation operation, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout the state of Colorado. We're focused on providing high-quality service and customer satisfaction. We will do everything we can to meet your expectations. WarrenEdson.com. Edson Maton and Matz in Denver, 303-831-8188, and in Aspen, 970-948-7183. WarrenEdson.com.
National Cannabis Industry Association would like to thank its members who represent the leading professional businesses in America's emerging legal cannabis market. NCIA is the only organization that has unified legitimate cannabis business across the nation to fight for real reform in Washington, D.C. For more information or to make your business a member, visit us online at thecannabisindustry.org.
Blurry things were. Hi, and we're back. Most of you, whoa! Chris got so excited he dropped the stand. I'm sure most of you are wondering about my glasses. Yes, I had to break down and get glasses, but my sight wasn't as bad as I thought.
That's good.
But when I put them on and like looking at night on the signs, I was like, wow, I can see.
I can see.
It was amazing. Plus, it helps me stare at the computer screen. So, anyway. Yeah, this ordinance is going to be really, 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 really bad. If the ordinance is approved by council and signed by the mayor, it would take effect immediately, and offenders could face a fine of $1,000 and up to a year in jail.
So does it say smell of the smoke or just smell in general? Because like I said, after a day of trimming those essential oils
Right.
of all of your clothes, Matt and I walked into a store. We had people following us. I mean, it smelled so strongly. So would we get arrested because we smell like...
It just talks about it also would prohibit smoking
Okay, so specific.
on private property if it is visible to the public, such as on a front porch or in a car, and if the odor of pot could be detected from a neighboring property. Your activity should not pervade others' peace and ability to enjoy, says Denver Mayor Michael Hancock. And, I had this same conversation because I was on the criminal law task force. And that's one of the things that was brought up is like some of the words they used in 64 that are going to haunt me forever. And that is, and now I can't remember.
Yeah, right. That's great.
Oh my God. Anyway, yeah, talking about the porch because it is, if you drink beer on your porch, you're not infringing on your neighbor. If you smoke cigarettes, it's legal. And then we have the Clean Door Indoor Act that talks about where you can and where you can't smoke, and you can't. And the only difference was that we decided you can't smoke marijuana in your car, obviously. But you could in a limo if they let you.
Gotcha.
Because it is a service and it is private and they have a license. So from what we came up with that, a limo should be totally fine.
Similarly, like some limos have wet bars, right? You can
Right.
drink in limos.
Exactly. So you can, you have a driver and it's safe. And so, yeah. So it looks like people in Denver County, if you have a neighbor that doesn't like you and you're smoking pot, get ready because it's just one thing that they'll be able to call the police on you, which is absolutely ludicrous. Okay, so then I was what were we talking about before I totally rudely interrupted you? I wanted to talk more too about juicing. And it's very interesting that I think only one company is doing juicing here.
As far as offering it as a product?
At a dispensary.
That's cool. I was talking to some friends of mine a while ago as far as like a Jamba Juice,
Right.
type location.
Exactly.
Because it's still medical marijuana, but I consider it very different. Yeah, it's more like food because you have those non-psychoactive constituents that are still medicinal, but you can drink a lot of raw cannabis juice and not feel high, not have that psychoactivity. So
Right. And still get the benefits of the cannabinoids. And that's what's very important for people to understand. And like we had Dean on from Canna Life, superfood.
Superfood, it's true.
It shouldn't be scheduled. It should just be a superfood. So, toddler dies in CPS captivity after being taken from marijuana smoking parents. Oh, great. So they took the child and then the child died in CPS. Perfect. Oh my God. What is wrong with this world? That's on the video too.
When I was in New York, so a lot of these clinical researchers, scientists, doctors from out of the United States, one of them from England, actually, I'll remember what he he said, because it was I think it was a very outside-looking approach because, again, at the beginning of the show, I talked about how a lot of scientists don't see that we have so many other hurdles to jump over. But he was talking about how, why do we think that it's okay for parents to self-prescribe and dabble with the scientific method and circumvent, the actual steps that you're supposed to take? And, because there was a lot of dispensary owners and a lot of what they were calling lay experts or cannabis people, that are very passionate. And what he said was, do we want sensationalism or do we want facts, because science facts are cold, clinical, and he's talking about preclinical studies leading to clinical studies, etc., the pharmaceutical model. But my question is, why can't you have science and empathy, right?
Sure. Well, it's so bizarre because in our industry right now, we're the experts.
Right.
If you called up your doctor, he can't help you. You either have to call a doctor that's familiar with cannabis or call the cannabis community.
Right.
And that's scary. We cannot give medical advice, but we've seen all of the experience and what
Rob was saying, what we've been talking about is it won't change until it changes on the government level. At the end of this seminar in New York, someone asked, well, what can we do? How can we get the public to accept and move forward with cannabis as a medicine? The answer is to get this information into the teaching literature. How can you have a med school student becoming a doctor not knowing about the endocannabinoid system? We had one doctor that was saying, I have my med school students telling me this is the best kept secret. Because there's so much wealth of discoveries, but the government doesn't allow for that kind of just curiosity, because a lot of doctors that are being taught right now, there's no section on the endocannabinoid system. Why?
Right.
Why not?
Well, think about it. There was a doctor only took take a half a semester of nutrition.
Right.
That's ludicrous. I mean, that's why they're literally just a doctor of medicine. Mm-hmm. They are not your wellness. You need a nutritionist pretty much. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's the thing is they're a doctor of medicine and you can't fault them for that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, then people need to understand that. And then we need to start a whole new, your wellness, all around wellness, to look at your different, areas of your life, including exercise and all of that kind of stuff. Because what's funny to me is when you get cancer, what does your doctor do? Oh, you need to see a nutritionist. You need to stop eating meat, and you need to eat all organic. Okay, great. How come you couldn't have told me that before I got cancer?
Yeah, right. Preventative.
It's preventative, and the country knows nothing about it.
Yeah, right. It's reactive.
Speaking of McDonald's, did you see the chicken McNuggets are made of ligaments?
I told Matt,
it's disgusting,
because I was looking at it and all he saw was my face, because he was behind the screen. He just saw my face when I was looking at it. He's like, "What do you see?" It's like there's little creatures living in there.
So we talked about that last week, and then the week before that. But then I saw the Today Show, and they said they didn't give the name of it, but they said chicken McNuggets, and it's not chicken. It's 20% chicken.
It's crazy.
Ligament. It's disgusting. It's so disgusting that they can make things like that taste good.
You know what's funny is Anthony Bourdain, who eats everything. The only thing he won't eat is chicken McNuggets.
What?
The only thing he won't eat is chicken McNuggets. You know, he loves that. It's like the stinkiest fruit in the world. Dirty.
Yeah. Smells like a dirty sweat sock.
It smells like a cadaver rolled in it's like one of the
Ew.
stinkiest smells ever.
Does it taste good?
Yeah, he said the taste is very unique. It supposedly doesn't taste like what it smells.
Right.
Matt and I are building up the courage to try it.
I want to try it.
Well, you can't be around anybody. You can't breathe on anybody after. I mean, yeah, if you think about it, you're going to have some really fun.
Yeah. Forget about garlic.
That's why Matt has to try it too.
Have you been eating dead people?
Oh my God, that is so disgusting. Yeah.
So yes, to bring that back to cannabis,
Yeah.
we don't want synthetic chicken McNugget type.
No, we want nothing. We don't want Marinol. We want the plant.
Plant.
The plante. I mean, I really think that once they start these studies too, separating the cannabinoids away from the other cannabinoids, it just seems like, yeah, it works in a lock and key. If you don't have a lock, but you have the key, that's not going to do you a lot of good. Right? So, anyway, and if you have anybody or anything you would like us to talk about on In the Lab with Genifer, please email me at genifer@canlabs.com, and we'll see if we can help you out. And I believe that's going to be it. We're 1 minute over, Chris. What were you thinking? Anyway, thank you, Rob Hunt from cannabis.org, and it's always a pleasure. And next week, I actually know, we have Josh Stanley and maybe Jesse or Joel if they decide to come. But Josh Stanley is going to talk to us about the last year with the kids and everything like that. Sanjay Gupta, the special, and then we'll talk to him about TED as well.
Cool. That's awesome.
Tune in next week. And in the meantime, make it a good one.